Guys, we're going to talk about the capital gains situation because everybody thinks it's a done deal, and we were just debating, is it actually?
Mm-hmm. Is it a done deal, and how many people are making moves based off of this?
Yeah.
So,
There's a high likelihood, and you know what, maybe something's coming out right now while I'm saying this that says, no, it is happening, right?
I think a lot of people just hear the amount of crazy coming out of Ottawa, and they would just assume that why wouldn't that be true?
Sure.
Because he says some crazy shit. Welcome back to REI Hot Seat. I've got two guests with me today, Jacob Campagnaro, David Hulshof. We've all done this before on REI Hot Seat.
We have, yeah.
So this is a reunion. Anyways, guys, we're going to talk about the capital gains situation because everybody thinks it's a done deal, and we were just debating, is it actually? Mm-hmm. And there's some evidence to suggest it is not. Yes. And Dave, you brought this up, so...
Yeah. The old cappuccino.
Yeah, this is it's interesting that the fun conversations we have in the office was, is it a done deal, and how many people are making moves based off of this? Yeah. So did some research, the article that's up now, and that as the article suggests, it's not finalized yet.
Yeah.
Dave, do you want to just tell what this is about briefly? We won't go through the whole thing, but just
the whole premise of the article is really like, has it come to effect? A little bit of history on what has to happen to actually get these things passed through the Senate, and then just some sort of background context in tax in general.
So has it passed the House, to your understanding?
No.
Or it's got to go through the House and then the Senate.
So this is from April. Yeah. So, and I'm certainly I'm not an expert, but
if anybody knows more, put it in the comments. Like we're always happy to see that, right?
So if we're understanding this correctly, then the idea is that it was something that where did this even originate? Trudeau? Did he say it?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So
the budget.
So he sponsored the bill to go through the House, but then they put a date on it, and then the date was talked about as if it's
done deal.
There's that video circulating with Trudeau talking. Is that real?
I think
he's like talking about capital gains, and he's
he's pandering a lot.
I don't know
if
that one's real or not. So I keep seeing a lot of fake videos.
But part of what was interesting, I mean, there's a lot of good parts in the article, but one of them was, a lot of times when they make some of these changes, they're starting immediately. And the fact that it's out in the future and people are now sort of making shifts is some of this just a maneuver to get people to sort of crystallize some of their gains.
Yeah.
And that's part of what they're saying is, if it's not a done deal, what are we betting? Everything's just risk.
So
right?
it could stimulate some revenue regardless. A whole bunch of people try and transact right before the deadline. I mean, that's some gymnastics, right? Because they allowed like a 3-month runway.
Yes.
I mean, that's limited time to think about selling your property, list it, get an offer, firm up, and close in 3 months.
We've been fielding calls for the past 2-3 weeks now with many people saying, "Hey, do you have a buyer that will close before the 25th, June 25th?"
People taking massive haircuts in conversations,
and that's probably somewhat illogical unless they're like $3 million of gain and they're trying to save. But even if 13% on that or 16%, right?
Yeah, but then even in that case, like it could get passed, then go into appeal, right? And then it's still not like, you know what I mean?
Readings,
There
could be 3 readings in the House, right?
There could be tax law where the lawyer finds a way to, this or that. Like there's so many cases. So it's interesting that people are this aggressive on it. More than I've seen with any other change.
That's spurred the conversation of getting the article, right?
But I mean, if it's a CRA thing, then does it even need to go through the House? Because I'm sure that at some point the Income Tax Act, although this is even debated, whether that passed the House and the Senate. So if that did and it allowed them the ability to change policy, do they even need it to go through?
Yeah. I mean, our article kind of gives you the runway and explanation on where we are. But
this just got thrown at me. I have not read this yet, so this is why Dave's explaining. We're questioning. We're grilling him.
Yeah, no, I don't. I read the article, so I'm no expert.
Well, we can attach the article to the.
We'll throw this into the show notes.
But I think that the idea is there's an immense amount of shifting going on and a lot of conversation. People putting their money where their mouth is, willing to take reduction in costs and what they're going to sell their property for to do something that, as we understand, it's not certainty.
Well, let's just high level explain this because some people won't even be aware of this. Very few, but some won't. So basically, it was 2 months ago or 1 month ago that it was announced that capital gains, which used to be on 50% of your gain. So if you bought a property for $200 and sold it for $400, you have a $200,000 gain. Well, 50% of that, in other words, $100,000 would be taxable at your marginal tax rate. The proposed change was that after $250,000 in gains. Now you're going to go up to the next tier of rate, which would be 66% of the gains.
66.7.
66.6.
Don't forget the 0.7.
Very
no,
evil.
It's 0.7.
Well, you're rounding up, but okay,
No,
66.
it actually is.
Because they didn't want to tell you they're evil. So they went to 7, but they still are. Anyways, so like basically the idea is you're going to pay quite a bit more. So if you had, say it was a $300,000 gain, you're going to pay an extra 16 tax on an extra 16% of it.
Right.
So it's not a huge thing in small examples, but in big examples, it really adds up.
In a corporation, if I'm
It's
correct,
immediately in the
it's immediately,
corporation.
so it's the full amount.
Yeah, so
right?
anyone with a corp, they're immediately saying,
Which is going to be most multifamily ownership in a corp, right?
Correct.
So
and so there are cases, and I wanted to explain one case. So that was actually brought to my attention, right? It was, let's call it $30 million purchase price on a multifamily building. They've owned it for 30 years.
Right.
They bought it for $2 million, $1 million.
Yeah.
It's in a corp.
It's going to make a big difference.
And now all of a sudden it's, hey, we need to get this done.
Well,
like what's
think
going
for
on
example,
here?
so if it's an extra 16% of your gain would be taxable, and in a corporation, I think you're like 45% on capital gains or something. It's a lot. So if it's an extra 16%, that's effectively an extra 8% in tax. Like if you're in that, or ish 7%.
Yeah.
So if on every $100,000, you're going to pay an extra $7,000.
It's immense.
Now's where
It's a
you're
lot.
seeing like somebody with a multi-million-dollar building. They're saying like, well, on a million, it's 70,000.
Right.
So then 2 million, it's 140. So if they take if they take a little bit of a cut, like 100 to sell it before that date, they're winning.
It's people are paying. We chatted about it. It's like how many people live in silos and don't bring their experts into the conversation. We were talking about having accountants be involved. Like these aren't small numbers, and some of this stuff seems to be a question mark. So it's like, hey, before you do that, before you take a hit, before you do X, Y, and Z, let's get your accountant.
How much are you leaving on the table, right?
Yeah.
And this is where I wanted to go with it, because this is like, let's be realistic. This is not a new issue. Yes, the 16.7% is a new issue.
Yeah.
But there's been people for hundreds and hundreds of years that have sold buildings with a lot of equity and a lot of growth, right? And what is the traditional ways to mitigate your capital gain?
Yep.
VTB. Right.
That's
there's many
the
ways to do
VTB is
it.
the
Right. That's a
forefront of
VTB. That's
conversations
the
there.
simplest way to go about it. Right.
And logically, let's just think like, why would somebody want to just delay it? Because that gives them an opportunity to basically compound their returns, right? Because they can now charge an interest rate on the money that hasn't been taxed and make money on that.
So and you can sort of spread out your tax disposition too, right? So
Yeah, but I mean, so say in the corporate example, they're going to pay 45% every year regardless, right? I mean, obviously everyone talk to your accountants. Like we're not accountants. We're just three guys that we're enthusiastic about real estate and don't like tax.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, you're still going to pay your 45% on cap gains regardless, but they could change the policy down the road too, right? There's a chance that the capital gains marginal tax rate in 3 years goes up. I mean, we never know what these psychos are going to do. And well, let's just take more of your money. That's effectively what they do. They didn't ask you.
This is such a hard podcast to not dive too deep into politics and some.
I know,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so. I look at it as very asinine because of the amount of very intelligent and capable people I see leaving the country.
That is a very big conversation.
Yeah, you do stupid things to tax the rich, and the rich leave, and then everybody else just gets taxed.
But you think like even the capital gains inclusion, right? It's like, it's only going to hit that top 1%. But really what we're seeing is people that have small to mid-sized multis that are in pain right now, their only choice is they got to sell it. And now they're looking at go a little bit of gain I can sell. At least I can get my head above water.
Help make
and
them
then
whole on other stuff they're doing.
Oh my gosh, guys! Like it's
So
just another kick.
This
right?
is something that just doesn't affect just that top 1%.
Not at all.
It's everybody, and it's really interesting. The people that have been very quiet with politics or very quiet in a lot of what's going on. All of a sudden now they're starting to call me and be like, what's going on here, right? Because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, now it affects me, right? So now I'm getting I'm
the
upset.
moving out is an interesting one. Like a lot of people are. I mean, capital's free flowing, right? So it goes to. I mean, you just look where it goes. It's going to Florida. It's going to Texas. Why?
It's going internationally. Right? Like people, like intelligent, wealthy people who make very wise investment decisions. They're going to look at Trudeau's exit tax. I found that really humorous. He's going to tack on another 25, so you can't. I made the mess. You got to stay here and clean it up.
You cannot leave.
it's not going to stop those people. Like they're going to say 25. Okay, well, I guess I learned my lesson.
Those are the people you want to help
and you want them to
continue
stay
the
because
economy,
those
right?
are the
Yes.
biggest contributors to the tax base that pay for all the social programs.
Yes.
The little Joe Schmo with his $200,000 gain is not paying the lion's share of the taxes.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right. And this goes into another conversation that Dave and I had last week or whatnot, but we were talking about, okay, so capital gain does go up, right? You are staying here, your family's here, whatnot, right? We're Ontario, focused. And okay, so capital gains goes up. So what does that mean? Okay, you don't sell your building immediately then, right? What if you hang on to your building, you refi it, right? Use that to do what you need with it. But in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it'll more than likely be a switch in the environment in the Canadian government and with their tax rules and all of that. That's my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else is going to think differently. But I'm going to say, okay, conservatives come into government. This is one of the things they can kind of backtrack on, among other things.
yeah, I'm very curious if that'll happen.
Right. And so is it short-sighted to say, I'm going to drop $1 million, $2 million, $3 million off the purchase price of my building to get it sold within 30 days?
Yeah.
Like I personally believe it is. I
Probably
think
is.
there's better
Probably is.
strategies
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
I think that's super short-sighted. And it's an indicator of where we are in the market.
Yeah.
Everybody is so on a hair trigger right now.
People
right?
are temperamental. But we've chatted. We've all chatted. It's like a risk premium you put on things.
Yeah.
Right. So the likelihood this gain's gonna take effect, right? Seems like it's quite likely.
Yeah.
There's a risk premium though that it might. You leaving, selling, taking a $3 million haircut. There's a risk to keeping it, or risk to not. And you got to judge, like, what is your ultimate goal? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
If you're long term and bullish on Canada, which I certainly am in the long term,
Yeah.
there are some really good deals out there if you structure it appropriately.
Yeah.
Well, and that's an interesting one to go because I do want to talk about how does this benefit buyers,
Yeah.
right?
Well, for
And so-
buyers, you got an opportunity to buy from panic sellers.
Yeah.
It's been for the people that are ready to actually act. There is incredible deals out there right now, and we're finally seeing the sellers start to adjust downward.
Yes. Yes.
And they perhaps have hung on just a little too long, and now we're hearing. I mean, we're in the front line, so we're hearing people that are in pain, and now we're courting some really good deals.
Yeah.
Really
And the only person that I see that doing this fire sale or this cap gain fire sale, whatever you want to call it, the only one it's actually working for, the only one that I recommend it to when they call me is the people that are like, I have to sell, right? Well, then it's okay. If you have to sell, then let's try to get ahead of this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe a VTB with less interest than you wanted to charge gets it done before then. Right. Or a slight reduction in the price.
Yeah.
So I think there is cases where, yes, someone calls me and says, what do you think of this? I'm going to say, well, what's your scenario?
Right.
And there might be a very few where I'll say, yes, we should package this up and sell immediately.
It's why it's nice to have good people in your corner, because the thing with being an investor, we're all optimistic, right? We're smart, but you look at it and you're like, you have made it through many, many challenges.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it and you're going, I can find a way. And some phone calls we're going, you just have other people's input, right? We chat all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, you lay it out and you need that person or people to go, you got to sell.
A lot
right?
of people
Or
have
you can
that
pull through it.
confirmation bias, right?
Yeah,
They're just looking,
well
they're
said,
looking
yeah.
for anything that will signal to them what they want to believe. Which,
Yes.
I mean, I get people on both sides. Like I'm too talking about the U.S., but then I also am like very balanced. Like we're growing here in Ontario still with our resorts and stuff. Like you could still do business in both places.
Yes.
But yes, just like you said, you got to decide what's your long-term strategy look like. Like, is this where you want to grow? And you make that decision. And if that's where you're at, then work with experts and make it work.
What is the saying? People making long-term decisions. No, how does that go? Have you heard it? It's like making short-term decisions on long-term. I'm blowing it. I'll find it.
Yeah,
Good one.
I'm not following
It's
that.
really good, right? Yeah,
I'm sure it's great.
It has on the tip of my tongue.
I'm going to coach you.
Yeah. Well, somebody will be like, this guy. It's this. Yeah,
I don't know. I'll think of it. End quote.
It obviously be in my head till I figure it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
No,
yeah.
but I think that does summarize this. We just a quick snippet.
Yeah,
as
like, let's put a
information comes
bow on
out,
this,
yeah,
you
as
know.
information comes out, we will do a follow up to this for sure. it's a very interesting topic, and I know a lot of people have been asking questions about it. So hopefully this gives.
It is interesting because all we have is like surface level, talk, right? Like, and there's digging into the details. It's obviously a good thing to look into if you're making decisions based on it.
The irony is you pick up the phone, you want to phone your accountant right now. It's tax time, so you can't really.
I know you can't even get a hold of your accountant. Yeah,
they're all busy.
Hey, we're doing a podcast. We've got a quick question. Probably not going to get a call back just yet, right?
No, and it's anyways, yeah. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, and one thing I wanted to mention is they did try and do this in 2017, and I remember because I was trying to buy something, and the guy wanted to like set his closing date for a date in April.
Right,
it's like it's got to be this date because they're making the decision after that, and they ended up not doing it. So
was that for capital gains as well?
That was the same scenario.
Interesting.
It was in 2017. Yeah,
interesting. Because they did the same thing with the lifetime capital gains exemption for business owners.
Okay,
and farmers were up and roaring because that's a big tax.
But it didn't happen. It was a nothing burger.
They did the exact same thing and pulled back.
And who knows? Like this has been done in the past. It obviously didn't work then. It scares away smart people with capital, and they leave. And it makes people not want to invest in Canada, so they invest elsewhere, and then they'll just drop the tax down again. So to Jake's point, they could do it for a few years, realize the horrendous mess it creates, and drop it right back down.
Oh, and it's amazing that the misinformation that's out there, right? There's people calling me that are dead set on this. And I go, guys, it's not 100% yet, right? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, no, this is like, it is happening. And it's the 25th, and that's the day. And I'm there's a high likelihood, and you know what, maybe something's coming out right now while I'm saying this that says, no, it is happening, right?
I think a lot of people just hear the amount of crazy coming out of Ottawa, and they would just assume that why wouldn't that be true?
Sure.
Because he says some crazy shit. Like, it's just like, all I could do is just like laugh. Like, I don't even take it seriously anymore because it's nuts.
But to your earlier point, people are on edge right now, right?
Yeah.
So you hear something and you're reactionary, and
that's
part of our
true.
role is to slow down, ask the questions. Do you need to sell, right? Are we making a good strategy? Is there a case to be made? A bunch of calls. We talked about this earlier too. There's a bunch of refinances that are working. So it's like, do you need to sell? You can refi and pull out some money. Not everybody. I recognize that's not the whole case, but
to put a bow on this, I do want to say this. Like, yes, so we just worked out in a corp. It's probably around 7% tax on top of what you would pay, factoring in that it's only on 50% of your income, all that. 7% more. So on $2 million, if that's an extra $140,000, well, if you're still in a good position, even if you're paying that. I get no one wants to, but in smaller examples, $100,000, you're an extra $7,000. That's not the end of a deal. That's not a deal breaker. So for all those people thinking they need to panic, I really don't think that's a cause
use
for
the
panic.
money you're walking away with to make more money.
Yeah.
To
and
offset
I'm always
the capital gain that you just
I'm
paid.
too much that way because I'm always thinking like, I'm the optimist. Like I can find a way to make more money. And I took huge tax hits to like liquidate my portfolio all inside of like 2021 and 22 and in 3.
Yeah.
Huge tax hits by putting it all together. And because a lot of it was personal and I was just jacking my marginal rate and it is what it is. I knew I had a reason to do that. It was a change in my direction. So I wasn't even stopped. I wasn't spending any time thinking about that.
Well, that's it, right? Like, understand your path, right? Speak to the professionals. And make your decisions, right? And that's and if you choose to fire sale now or wait, you're not wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's just
you got to be well informed,
move?
right? You got to know what you're talking about and think through it. You get good advisory, and like you said, you've thought through it. You make a decision, and that's where you go.
There you
don't
go.
react. React is never the right move.
I like the way this episode went. This is just like a couple of guys, a few guys having a chat about business, and I had somebody specifically ask me for content like this. He's like, there's so many interview podcasts out there. It'd be cool to just have like discussion based, which I thought was really good for.
Well, the plan moving forward is we're going to be doing much more of this. We're going to bring
we're going to have
Zach,
more guests on.
Our third partner
Zach.
on, right? And we want to be doing regular, just, chat it out.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good.
You should get an account on. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be good to fill that chair with experts. We'll just bring them in. So I'm looking forward. We're going to do a lot more cool stuff like this with REI Hot Seat. So everybody stay tuned. And then for anyone who wants to work with these guys, obviously they're very educated in Ontario market, real estate in general, business people. The link below. You can join the list, basically, opt in, and then somebody will get in touch.
And that's it. And so the link is going to be changing. We'll have a new link down there because we're going to be tying it to our new system, our new software. We're always trying to get. So
if you've already opted in, you should opt in again, or
sure, why not?
Yeah.
Right, we'll
Double
take
opt
it.
in.
Right? No, you don't have to, but listen, if you want to, go for it. If you don't, we have your information. We're already in contact with them.
Okay.
but we are going to be changing the system. So if anybody has opted in before and they go back and click on it, looks different, that's why. It'll be going through our new CRM software.
We're going to be doing probably a deal a week. So dissecting deals of the week, things like that. So there's going to be some cool content coming out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, looking forward to lots more deal review. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week for REI Hot Seat. If you've enjoyed so far, make sure you show some love to the channel. We'll see you then.
Thank you.